These are the groups of the gatekeepers from the Korah family. There was Meshelemiah, son of Kor. Kor was from the family of Asaph. Meshelemiah had sons. Zechariah was the oldest son. Jediah was the second son. Zebediah was the third son. Jethniel was the fourth son. Elam was the fifth son. Jehohanan was the sixth son. And Elohenai was the seventh son. Obed-Edom had sons. His oldest son was Shemaiah. Jehozabad was his second son. Joah was his third son. Sakar was his fourth son. Nathaniel was his fifth son. Amiel was his sixth son. Issachar was his seventh son. And Pulathai was his eighth son. God really blessed Obed-Edom. Obed-Edom's son was Shemaiah. Shemaiah also had sons. His sons were leaders in their father's family because they were brave soldiers. Shemaiah's sons were Othni, Raphael, Obed, Elzabad, Elihu, and Shemachiah. Elzabad's relatives were skilled workers. All these men were Obed-Edom's descendants. These men and their sons and relatives were powerful men. They were good guards. Obed-Edom had 62 descendants. Meshelemiah had sons and relatives who were powerful men. In all, there were 18 sons and relatives. These are the gatekeepers from the Merari family. Hosa, son of Merari, chose his son Shimri to be the leader, even though he was not the oldest son. Helkiah was Hosa's second son, Tibaliah his third, and Zechariah his fourth son. In all, Hosa had 13 sons and relatives who were gatekeepers. These were the leaders of the groups of the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers had a special way to serve in the Lord's temple, just as their relatives did. Each family was given a gate to guard. Lots were thrown to choose a gate for a family. Young and old were treated the same. Meshelemiah was chosen to guard the east gate. Then lots were thrown for Meshelemiah's son, Zechariah. Zechariah was a wise counselor. Zechariah was chosen for the north gate. Obed-Edom was chosen for the south gate, and Obed-Edom's sons were chosen to guard the house where the valuable things were kept. Shuppam and Hosa were chosen for the west gate and the Shelekith gate on the upper road. Guards stood side by side. 6 Levites stood guard every day at the east gate. 4 Levites stood guard every day at the north gate. 4 Levites stood guard at the south gate, and 2 Levites guarded the house where the valuable things were kept. There were 4 guards at the western court and 2 guards on the road to the court. These were the groups of the gatekeepers from the families of Korah and Merari. Ahijah was from the tribe of Levi. Ahijah was responsible for taking care of the valuable things in God's temple. Ahijah also was responsible for the places where the holy things were kept. Ladan was from Gershon's family. Jeheli was one of the leaders of the tribe of Ladan. Jeheli's sons were Zetham and Zetham's brother Joel. They were responsible for the valuable things in the Lord's temple. Other leaders were chosen from the tribes of Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Shubael was the leader responsible for the valuable things kept in the temple. Shubael was Gershom's son. Gershom was Moses' son. These were Shubael's relatives. His relatives from Eleazar were Rehabiah, Eleazar's son; Jeshiah, Rehabiah's son; Joram, Jeshiah's son; Zichri, Joram's son; and Shelomith, Zichri's son. Shelomith and his relatives were responsible for everything that David had collected for the temple. The officers of the army also gave things for the temple. They gave some of the things taken in wars. They gave these things to be used for the Lord's temple. Shelomith and his relatives took care of all the things that people gave to be used for the temple. This included the things given by Samuel the seer, Saul son of Kish, Abner son of Ner, and Joab son of Zeruiah. Kenaniah was from the Izhar family. Kenaniah and his sons had to work outside the temple. They worked as court officers and judges in different places in Israel. Hashabiah was from the Hebron family. Hashabiah and his relatives were responsible for all the Lord's work and for the king's business in Israel west of the Jordan River. There were 1,700 powerful men in Hashabiah's group. The family history of the Hebron family shows that Jeriah was their leader. When David had been king for 40 years, he ordered his people to search through the family histories for strong and skilled men. Some of them were found among the Hebron family, living in the town of Jazer in Gilead. Zeruiah had 2,700 relatives who were powerful men and leaders of families. King David gave these 2,700 relatives the responsibility of leading the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh in taking care of God's work in the king's business. This is the list of the Israelites who served the king in the army. Each group was on duty 1 month each year. There were rulers of families, captains, generals, and the court officers who served the king. Each army group had 24,000 men. Jashabim, son of Zabdiel, was in charge of the first group for the first month. There were 24,000 men in Jashabim's group. Jashabim, one of Perez's descendants, was leader of all the army officers for the first month. Dodai, from the Ahohites, was in charge of the army group for the second month. Mikloth was a leader in that group. There were 24,000 men in Dodai's group. The third commander for the third month was Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, the leading priest. There were 24,000 men in Benaiah's group. He was the same Benaiah who was a brave soldier from the 30 heroes. He led these men. His son, Amizabad, was in charge of Benaiah's group. The fourth commander for the fourth month was Asahel, the brother of Joab. Later, Asahel's son, Zebediah, took his place as commander. There were 24,000 men in Asahel's group. The fifth commander for the fifth month was Shemath from Zerah's family. There were 24,000 men in Shemath's group. The sixth commander for the sixth month was Ira, son of Ikish, from the town of Tekoa. There were 24,000 men in Ira's group. The seventh commander for the seventh month was Helez from the Pelonites, and a descendant of Ephraim. There were 24,000 men in Helez's group. The eighth commander for the eighth month was Sibbecai from Husha and from Zerah's family. There were 24,000 men in Sibbecai's group. The ninth commander for the ninth month was Abiezer from a town of Anathoth in the tribe of Benjamin. There were 24,000 men in Abiezer's group. The 10th commander for the 10th month was Maharai from Nadaphah and from Zerah's family. There were 24,000 men in Maharai's group. The 11th commander for the 11th month was Benaiah from Pirathon and the tribe of Ephraim. There were 24,000 men in Benaiah's group. The 12th commander for the 12th month was Heldai from Netophah and from Othniel's family. There were 24,000 men in Heldai's group. These were the leaders of the tribes of Israel: Eleazar, son of Zichri, leader of the tribe of Reuben; Shephatiah, son of Makkah, leader of the tribe of Simeon; Hashabiah, son of Kemuel, leader of the tribe of Levi; Zadok, leader of the people of Aaron; Elihu, one of David's brothers, leader of the tribe of Judah; Omri, son of Michael, leader of the tribe of Issachar; Ishmaiah, son of Obadiah, leader of the tribe of Zebulun; Jeremoth, son of Azarel, leader of the tribe of Naphtali; Hoshea, son of Azaziah, leader of the tribe of Ephraim; Joel, son of Pedaiah, leader of West Manasseh; Iddo, son of Zechariah, leader of East Manasseh; Jaziel, son of Abner, leader of the tribe of Benjamin; Azarel, son of Jeroham, leader of the tribe of Dan. David decided to count the men in Israel. There were many people because the Lord had promised to make the Israelites as many as the stars in the sky. So David counted only the men who were 20 years old and older. Joab, son of Zeruiah, began to count the people, but he did not finish. God became angry with the Israelites. That is why the number of the people was not put in the book, the history of King David. This is the list of the men who were responsible for the king's property. Asmapheth, son of Adiel, was in charge of the king's storerooms. Jonathan, son of Uzziah, was in charge of the storerooms in the small towns, villages, fields, and towers. Ezri, son of Caleb, was in charge of the field workers. Shimei from Ramah was in charge of the vineyards. Zabdi from Shephem was in charge of the storage and care of the wine that came from the vineyards. Baal-Hanan from Geder was in charge of the olive trees and sycamore trees in the western hill country. Joash was in charge of storing the olive oil. Shatrai from Sharon was in charge of the cattle around Sharon. Shaphat, son of Adlai, was in charge of the cattle in the valleys. Obil, the Ishmaelite, was in charge of the camels. Jediah, the Meronothite, was in charge of the donkeys. Josiah the Hagrite was in charge of the sheep. All these men were the leaders who took care of King David's property. Jonathan was a wise counselor and a scribe. He was David's uncle. Jael, son of Hachmoni, took care of the king's sons. Ahithophel was the king's counselor. Hushai was the king's friend. Hushai was from the Archites. Jehoiada and Abiathar later took Ahithophel's place as the king's counselor. Jehoiada was Benaiah's son. Joab was the commander of the king's army. David gathered all the leaders of the Israelites and commanded them to come to Jerusalem. David called all the leaders of the tribes, the commanders of the army groups serving the king, the captains, the generals, the officials taking care of the property and animals that belonged to the king, and his sons, the king's important officials, the powerful heroes, and all the brave soldiers. King David stood up and said, "Listen to me, my brothers and my people. In my heart, I wanted to build a place to keep the box of the Lord's agreement. I wanted to build a place that would be God's footstool, and I made the plans for building that house for God. But God said to me, 'No, David, you must not build a house for my name. You must not do that because you are a soldier and you have killed many men.' The Lord, the God of Israel, chose the tribe of Judah to lead the 12 tribes of Israel. Then from that tribe he chose my father's family, and from that family he chose me to be the king of Israel forever. Yes, God wanted to make me king of Israel. The Lord has given me many sons, and from all those sons he chose Solomon to be the new king of Israel. But really, Israel is the Lord's kingdom. He said to me, 'David, your son Solomon will build my temple and the area around it, because I have chosen Solomon to be my son, and I will be his father.' Solomon is obeying my laws and commands now. If he continues to obey my laws, I will make Solomon's kingdom strong forever." David said, "Now, in front of all Israel, the Lord's people, and before God, I tell you these things. Be careful to obey all the commands of the Lord your God. Then you can keep this good land and pass it on to your descendants forever. And you, my son Solomon, know the God of your father. Serve God with a pure heart. Be happy to serve him, because the Lord knows what is in everyone's heart. He knows what you're thinking. If you go to him for help, you will get an answer. But if you turn away from him, he will leave you forever. Solomon, you must understand that the Lord has chosen you to build his holy place, the temple. Be strong and finish the job." Then David gave his son Solomon the plans for building the temple. They included plans for the porch around the temple, its buildings, its storerooms, its upper rooms, its inside rooms, and the room for the mercy cover. David had made plans for all parts of the temple. He gave them to Solomon. David gave him all the plans for the courtyard around the Lord's temple and for all the rooms around it. He gave him the plans for the temple storerooms and for the storerooms where they kept the holy things used in the temple. David told Solomon about the groups of the priests and Levites. He told Solomon about all the work of serving in the Lord's temple and about all the things to be used in the temple service. David told Solomon how much gold and silver should be used to make all the things to be used in the temple. There were plans for gold lamps and lampstands, and there were plans for silver lamps and lampstands. David told Solomon how much gold or silver to use for each lampstand and its lamps. The different lampstands were to be used where needed. David told him how much gold should be used for each table for the holy bread and how much silver should be used for the silver tables. He told Solomon how much pure gold should be used to make the forks, sprinkling bowls, and pitchers. He told him how much gold should be used to make each gold dish and how much silver should be used to make each silver dish. He told him how much pure gold should be used for the altar of incense. David also gave Solomon the plans for God's chariot, the mercy cover with the cherub angels spreading their wings over the box of the Lord's agreement. The cherub angels were made of gold. David said, "All these plans were written with the Lord guiding me. He helped me understand everything in the plans." David also said to his son Solomon, "Be strong and brave and finish this work. Don't be afraid, because the Lord God, my God, is with you. He will help you until all the work is finished. He will not leave you. You will build the Lord's temple." The groups of the priests and Levites are ready for all the work on God's temple. Every skilled worker is ready to help you with all the work. The officials and all the people will obey every command you give.